vote, gal. Follow the white line down the road, and we go jam, gal. Follow the alliance down the road, down the road. Follow the white line.
Good evening, and welcome to this edition of the National Alliance television program. I am your host, Silveria Jacobs.
Follow the white line down the road, and to the polls, gal. Follow the alliance down the road, and we go vote, gal. Follow the white line down the road, and we go jam.
Today on our program, we have the Honorable Member of Parliament, Mr. Louie Laveist. MP Laveist, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me, Silveria. It's my pleasure to be here. And of course, I'd like to say hello to the viewing and listening audience.
It's a great pleasure for me to have you here as a guest. Last week, we had the Honorable MP George Pontiflet, who gave his views on parliamentary procedures, etc. And I think, it would be good for the public to hear from you now. With him, I started at the beginning. So that's exactly what I'm going to do with you, because your supporters know you, but every election, there are new persons that come out and are looking for a candidate to support. And so introduce yourself to our viewing audience.
Well, first of all, to those of the viewing audience who may not know me, my name is Louie Laveist. I am a member of the National Alliance, and of course, I'm a member of Parliament. This is my first year in Parliament since country St. Martin, but I have a long history of being elected, first as a member of Parliament of the former Netherlands Antilles, and then as an Island Council member, and of course as a commissioner. This is well, let's say this is about my 12th election, if I may say that. Not all of them was I elected, because I ran at least 2 before I got elected. And of course, subsequent to that, remember that we had 2 elections per year. So while it may sound like a lot,
per term.
You are right. Every 2 years we had elections. You had election for the Parliament of the Netherlands Antilles, and then 2 years after you had elections for the Island Territory elections. And so that's how come I ran so many times. So some people say, well, ooh, you must be pretty old. Not really. It's just a system. But nonetheless, I am proud to have served as a member of Parliament for the National Alliance in this first historic term for country St. Martin. Okay,
so that is giving them a short view. What does Louie stand for? What is Louie about?
Well, first of all, Louie is an everyday person. I stand about justice. I stand about fairness. I stand for the people of St. Martin. I stand for St. Martin in general. If you know me well, Silveria, I don't like to see advantage being taken of people, especially when it comes to political advantage. And in this case, I would say that a lot of people are being politically victimized on this island. People may not know it, but it is happening. There are some people today who are afraid to even come out and show politically which political affiliation they favor because of fear of backlash. And so, not to get too political too fast, some people would say, but right now, where are all the National Alliance supporters and stickers? Well, I have spoken to a lot of those people, and fear of political victimization, they prefer to remain quiet and wait for that day when it's close on to show exactly what they are about. So while you may not see a whole lot of fanfare with regards to National Alliance paraphernalia and stuff like that, the supporters are there. And that is what I do not stand for, because of the subtle political victimization that exists still. Some people are afraid that if they show their colors, they may not get what is deserving of them as a citizen of this country, and those things I really can't stand. Louie stand for defending the people of this country when there is an injustice in every which way, be it in the labor market, be it in the cultural market, be it in education. Louie will stand up on the side of right, despite the fact that some people may find me a bit aggressive. But sometimes you got to be aggressive in order to defend the people. And if that is a backlash that I have labeled, that I am labeled for, I'm okay with that, as long as justice in the end falls on the side of the people of this country.
Thank you. In case you're just joining us, this is a National Alliance television program hosted every Monday evening right here on St. Martin Cable TV. And our guest today is none other than the Honorable MP, Mr. Louie Laveist. The audience may not know this, but you're quite a difficult guy to get in touch with. So we're very, very happy to have you on the program today so that you can speak to I know you like to speak to your people on the ground, but there are some that would like to see you on the television as well. And it's
True.
good for us as National Alliance to see our representatives defend us and hear what they stand for. Now, for these 4 historical years, okay, from 2010 to 2014, we're coming up on elections soon. What do you see as a positive in terms of having a parliament that we are the ones now making the decisions, the legislative decisions for St. Martin? And how were you able to promote that during the 4 years?
What I say is a positive, I must say, is that including me, all elected representatives must take responsibility for what has or hasn't happened within the last 4 years. Before that, all of us, inclusive myself, we could always point the finger at that big brother, that big advantageous brother who took advantage of us as an island territory, Curacao. That is no longer the case. So what I see as a very important advantage is the fact that now those who have been governing this country for 4 years don't have that to fall back on. They will have to tell the people of this country why the cost of living has risen as much as it has risen within the 4 years. You can't blame Curacao. You are going to have to tell the people of this country, St. Martin, why today parents can't afford to meet their children's school fees. You can't blame Curacao for that. You're going to have to explain to the people exactly why gasoline prices continues to increase, why house rent continues to increase, why everything in this country continues to get more and more expensive. You're going to have to explain to the people of this country why you are not treating our teachers in a justifiable manner, why you are holding back on what is deserving of them. You can't blame Curacao.
So how do you feel that Parliament specifically influences these types of decisions?
Parliament influences these decisions by nature, by virtue of being able to call the government to Parliament to give accountability. By nature, that is Parliament's first and foremost duty. Parliament questions government and seeks information from government, from those representing on a ministerial level. Mm-hmm. To give account to the people. And that's what we have done as a parliament. In particular, the National Alliance has been very aggressive in calling government to parliament to give account with regards to all of the issues affecting the people, be it negatively on the island of St. Martin. The last one that we have, that I can remember taking part of as a parliament, albeit that we did not necessarily, we were not the authors of the request, mm-hmm. but it's parliament nonetheless, mm-hmm. is the Tillim debacle that we now see taking place on the island of St. Martin. The limbo status that those workers find themselves in is something that government must give account for. Is it that you are entering an agreement with UTS? Why are you entering an agreement? And if not, then you must say so. What are the advantages of an agreement with UTS or a merger with UTS, if that is, of course, at all the case? Case in point, if you will allow me to, Sylvia, government must explain to the people of this country and to give content and importance to the question that you ask. Government, for example, has, I believe, a 12.5% shares in UTS. Well, government must explain to the people and to the workers by extent, why is it not better? And these are the questions that I have posed. Why doesn't government first obtain its 12.5 shares from UTS, own the assets that are on St. Martin, and when you are 100% owner of shares and the assets of St. Martin, then I would have no problem in entertaining talks with regards to a merger with Tilem St. Martin, because then we are masters and we are the owners of both companies. What would that do? To make the answer very short, what would that do? That then could potentially bring down prices. It could enhance service to the consumer, though all those things are necessary. But right now, what I see is a potential loss of jobs if you just take it on the path that government is following right now. Why do I say that? Because we know, we tried for all these years to get away from Curacao. Why are you now entertaining merging with a Curacao company? And we know the behavioral pattern of the Curacao politicians. They are going to gobble up the shares of Tilem and make it their own, and that is the fear of the National Alliance. And so we are saying, let us take a more pragmatic approach with regards to this thing. Let us put all hands in deck, stop operating in a cloak and dagger fashion, and explain to the people exactly what's going down. And I feel that is the approach and the responsibility of Parliament, to hold government responsible.
Follow the white line down the road to the polls, girl. Follow the alliance down the road, and we go vote, girl. Follow the white line down the road, and we go jam, girl. Follow the alliance down the road, down the road.
In case you've just joined us, I am Sylvia Jacobs, the Deputy Leader of the National Alliance, and together with my guest on the National Alliance television program, MP Louie Laveist, we are seeking to give you much needed information into what is being dealt with in Parliament currently, as well as some of the things that we still need to deal with. MP Laveist, now you've just talked a bit about some of the issues, and MP George Pontiflet talked extensively about the passport issue, as well as some legislation that the National Alliance has put forward. A lot of the people around the island are saying that for 4 years they have not seen enough coming out of Parliament. They do not see probably what is good about the questioning of Parliament that happens of government that happens on a regular basis. As you've just explained, it is quite important for the public to know. What do you think is the reason why more legislation hasn't been passed at Parliament?
First of all, let me make it clear that may be a misconception. Lots of legislation has been passed, but legislation that benefits government, legislation that enables government to function, that type of legislation has definitely been passed, and lots of it has been passed.
The Monument Council.
Exactly. I mean, if we go back from the very beginning and talk about the organic laws that we dealt with and still are dealing with up to last week, 2 weeks ago, we dealt with some laws, and I believe on the 11th we will begin dealing with a lot of land survey ordering and laws with regards to the functioning of government.
Correct.
What I am struck negatively with, and what I would agree with you and the public on, is that much legislation that would deal with the people's business has not been passed. Case in point, and I hate to do this, but I will have to do this, and I'm sure that my colleague George Pontiflet perhaps touched on it last week. The National Alliance has put forward a piece of legislation to at least, if not eliminate, at least stem the abuse of the labor contract, the short-term labor contract. Government, for all intent and purpose, has no interest in that kind of legislation. So government is neither assisting, neither enabling, and as a matter of fact, I would go as far as to say showing no interest in ensuring that that piece of legislation, which would benefit the people of this country, and allow me, Sylvania, to indicate to you how important this legislation is, very briefly in a nutshell. Why is this legislation important? Because the legislation that we have proposed to be amended with regards to dealing with abuse of the short-term contract would enable mothers, daughters, sisters, fathers and brothers to become independent people, economically powerful because of job security. Today, we know that for years, decades as a matter of fact, we have casino workers who are employed on 3-month and 6 months contract, and they are in a vicious circle because some casino operators have more than one casino. They have 1, 2, 3 casinos, and so they employ the workers for 3 months here, another 6 months, and then they shift them from there and they put them to another casino, and the vicious circle continues over and over. So these people never ever become permanent workers, and so therefore they can't go to a bank and get a loan to buy a house, to buy a piece of land, etc., etc., and the story goes on and on. I think if government had any self-respect or regard for the people of this country, government would do every and anything possible to ensure that that legislation, that amendment to the short-term labor contract that the National Alliance has put forward, that be handled and dealt with. But government has no interest in that. And that is why I must take this opportunity to say to the people of this country, every man and woman that is affected by the abuse of this short-term contract, not only you who are directly affected, but your brothers, your sisters, your fathers, your uncles, your aunts, and your children, all of them, you must make sure that you send a loud, strong, clear message to this present government that you will not accept it anymore, and you must vote accordingly. Because if you vote to continue with this same government that you have there, the 6 months contract and the abuse of the 6 months contract will never be eliminated. Sorry I had to go into the lengthy explanation, but I wanted to...
This is an informative program, so we appreciate every explanation.
To indicate the importance of that legislation and the question that you asked that is so very relevant, the impression that people get and why they have that impression that many laws have not been passed with regards to St. Martin and Parliament. The legislations are there, but government just is not enabling Parliament because it does not affect government's coffers. It does not affect government operation or function, so to speak. And so you're right, and the people have a right to feel so, but the people got to vote accordingly.
Correct.
And that is what, because we can question as much as we want as members of Parliament, but if the citizens continually elect the same regime in terms of a UP and a DP to govern this country and give them and enable them to continue the abuse that is being taken against them, then there's very little that we as a National Alliance can do except call and question and defend and expose.
And this is what the National Alliance has done. And I must say that the public is aware of some of the ills, and they are fed up. And I believe that come August 29th, the public will show a strong favor for what they want. And if they vote resoundingly to keep the current government in power, then I think they have to stop complaining, because you cannot complain about something that has been perpetrated by one or the other over the past 40 years and expect a change. So in terms of now the future, you're coming to the end of this first term and you're looking to be elected again in August of 2014. What do you see yourself as fighting for the next 4 years?
I like that question. I don't know if I have enough time to answer, but let me just indicate here that the price increase that we have witnessed and felt throughout the 4 years, there's a reason for that. That has happened because the throughput fee at the harbor, in order to accommodate the financing of the causeway, the container fees has increased. What did the importer do? He increased the prices to the wholesaler. The wholesaler then passed on those prices to the retailer, and the retailer, of course, passed it on to us, the consumer. I'm not criticizing the causeway, but what I am critical of is the way it has been financed by, again, increasing prices on us, the people of this country. It's a tax increase, of course, guised by a new word, a fee. And so what I would like to see happen is that we find ways, new ways, creative ways to finance the project of the causeway. And that I will talk about perhaps in a subsequent program. Also, the increase, the 100% increase of the SZV funds. My task in the next 4 years, for the upcoming 4 years, when the National Alliance is elected, is to have that repealed and to have it financed in another manner. Of course, the program and how we will do that will leave for a subsequent program. In addition to that, what I want to see happen is that parents are not saddled with this ridiculous constant increase of school fees, and government has a right to facilitate and educate its people, its children, our young ones. And so it is a task of mine within the next 4 years with a National Alliance government to either eliminate or at least cut the amount of pain and suffering that our parents are experiencing to have their children educated. And so that is something that I want to address.
Well, we've come down quickly to the end of the program, and I must say thank you, MP Laveist, for being our guest on the program. I'm going to give you another minute to wrap up, but I'd like to let the viewing audience know that every Monday evening at 9 o'clock, you can view the National Alliance television program, where you will be informed and kept abreast as we build up our platform, as we move towards August 2014, where we will garner a sure win to support you, the people, and represent you, the people, in this year's election. MP Louie Laveist, final words.
My final words? First of all, I want to congratulate you on being elected as Deputy Leader for the National Alliance. I want to let you know, and I know you're going to be, you're kind of reserved to respond, but I'm very, very proud of you. I'm happy that you have been elected Deputy Leader, and I'm sure, confident that you will do a good job as you have begun doing already. Of course, you have gotten down, pulling up my socks already, so I know you're going to be easy. So that's how I know you're going to be a good a deputy leader. In addition to that, in closing, many people may not know the relationship between us, but we are related in
Yes.
matters that people doesn't know.
Exactly.
So family, the blood.
Blood.
And so I'm proud to be working with you, and I want to congratulate you and thank you for having me on the program. This is my very first. Hope it's not my last.
Definitely not your last, and thank you for being here. We're going to have to wrap up quickly now. We've come to the end of our program for this evening. Yes, MP Laveist will be back because we have to debate actually the school fee issue. If you were listening last week, we definitely talked about it then as well. So we do have to clarify how we are going to be dealing with the fees that schools are actually charging, which are not fees, but school fees, but contribution. We've come to the end of our program, and we would like to thank you, the viewers, for being with us. Stay tuned next week for more information from the National Alliance. I am Silveria Jacobs. Good night.
Follow the white line down the road to the polls, girl. Follow the alliance down the road, and we go vote, girl. Follow the white line down the road, and we go jam, girl. Follow the alliance down the road.